Michael Logue, 5241 Terrace Ridge Drive. One thing just kind of stems back. A few weeks ago, we just kind of had an opportunity to be able to take the quarter scale Eyes of Freedom Lima Company Memorial display and be able to put it on the walls at Everything Bagels. And it's there through the end of the month of October. Mr. McGraw, I know that Diane referenced that you guys had talked about it and that it was something that you wanted to talk about. I didn't know if there was anything that you took
we're
forward
trying
with
to, what it is, bringing the full-scale model somewhere here in the township, and we'd like to meet with the local American Legion and also maybe the veterans of the Vietnam War. Maybe they would like to participate. I think if we can do that, she was supposed to get me some figures on the exact costs, so we're trying to, I think it's around $5,000 or $6,000 maybe.
Yeah, I can get that all ran together, because I mean, really, you know, having the ability to have that quarter scale is from personal conversations with Diane as far as the way that she wants to impact the community. And all of you already see that as far as, you know, being supporting the men and women in blue and our first responders and our military. And there's a national trend right now that has been growing really and the reason for is suicides. So the full size display has a statue, a sculpture, bronze sculpture now called Silent Battle. And Silent Battle truly is out of the fact of saving someone's life. They had a plan to kill themselves. They came upon the 8-foot by 8-foot panels of the Eyes of Freedom. So what this is and what it depicts is it's the 23 Marines with Lima Company that were killed in combat in 2005. The unit I served with also know 37 that were wounded. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart, that anywhere I'm always going to be an advocate for it. It's good for the community, and it's good for that you know, feedback, because what we have seen with that, in this case specifically, that veteran, they said, and they stayed right there next to the paintings for the next week, and they came back with the promise that they were not going to take their life. And this artist, who had never done clay work before, much like when she first did the paintings, she'd never painted before. This was her first attempt at it, and did this full-size sculpture of this Army veteran. We got a bronze and goes around the country now. The problem that is always faced is as it goes around the community, everyone comes together. There's so much outpouring of public support. It's just a fantastic thing. And you're left with, you want to see something continue to grow and manifest out of that. So it's a great way to allow to get all the facets like you're referencing, the VVA 649, the VFW, American Legion, to come out together and also partner with the community, and how partners with police and fire. Anyway, that was out there to help facilitate that discussion and be able to get it going. So I was happy to hear that it's something that caught your eye. I know Craig McKee did a spotlight on it on Channel 9 yesterday actually as well. Some of the incidents that happened yesterday, I think, also cut into the timing of that, because they had late breaking news. But yeah, I welcome the thought and support for it. Figures for the full-size display is $6,000, and that's something that, you know, fundraising, community efforts can support and get behind. But we can get additional details for that.
Yeah, if we can get all the details, I know we've brought the replica of the Vietnam Memorial to Union Township before, and that was a great event.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah,
Twice
and that's absolutely on par and similar to that. This travels the country. You know, right now it travels the country, and a million individuals see it a year as it travels the country. So yeah, it's just something, and it's near and dear to this location. Actually, on November 23rd is the Nick Erdy Foundation. They'll be happening at the Norland Manor House, and that's the 15th year of that going on. Nick Erdy is also one of the Marines of Lima Company. So yeah, so people can't have an opportunity to get out and see it at that benefit or at that event, but I think it'd be something phenomenal to see here and see, you know, what and where it can be on display in Union Township. So I appreciate the support and the thought behind that, and you know, it's all goes into building on that further mission of how we continue to breed American optimism, and it can really highlight some work for the men and women in blue and the fire, because there's been more of a national push to basically take lessons learned from the military and how that's applicable. So as you see suicide rates increasing on the military side, right now the Air Force has had 77 active duty members take their life this year. That's just, you know, that should never be the case. And it's not a metric that's tracked for police and fire. And it's something that I think that as best efforts that we can do to at least watch that and be involved. Because no one ever wants to be on the other end of that call or the other end of that missed call. So, yeah. With that, that's what I wanted to mention on that. So,
Yeah.
if there's any additional comment, I welcome it.
Not this time.
Yeah, once we pull everything together, I'll be
Investigate it.
glad to present it to our administration. I'm sure if we can get community support, I'm sure it would be something we would
Okay.
support also.
Okay,
Check it out.
great.
Okay,
Appreciate that.
Appreciate the idea.
thank you.
Have a good night.
I have one other question, burning question. What's the rationale behind the independent audit report?
I'm not sure what you mean.
So the rationale for not having an audit by the state of Ohio.
We've done it both ways in the past. But even with an independent auditor, they have to be okayed and certified by the state to be able to perform that function. They're just much more efficient, a lot faster, and it just has worked out better for us. And when the state did it before, it was okay, but it was a long process. So it's more of an efficiency thing. But it's, you know, they have to still certify
list
and
of
be,
auditors.
yeah, it's an approved list of outside auditors that are.
Well, I mean, well, I think that's the thing that kind of is surprising, because the state specifically says that they've reviewed the independent auditor's report, and based upon the review, they accept the report in lieu of the audit required. And the auditor of state did not audit the accompanying financial statements, and accordingly, we are unable to express and do not express an opinion on them. I can understand what you're saying. I'm sure there's a solid answer.
Yeah, I mean,
Mr. Beamer, any history on it?
Mr. Geis, do you have anything to add to that, or?
It goes to the Board of Trustees, so I mean, it's,
Statutorily, Union Township, and as far as all townships in the state of Ohio, we're required to be audited biannually. And we go beyond that. We are audited annually, every year instead of biannually. So we actually increase the amount of audits that we have. The auditors that, as Mr. McGraw was stating, they're all certified by the state, and they're required to go through a certification process, and they're selected by the state, confirmed by the Board of Trustees to audit it. The reason that really we opted to do that is, one, we get a more efficient audit with that, and it's actually a more complete audit than the state of Ohio would do with the state auditors, in that they look at things annually. Their review of the reports are much more complete than they would be on a biannual, because they would use the same sorting and selection process in that. So we do that really because we get a more complete audit, a more accurate audit, and a more valid audit than we would through the state of Ohio. If we would do just the state of Ohio, they would do that biannually. So they would do it once every 2 years. So we do it every year in that, and then they do confirm that. And in the state of Ohio, the townships are not required to be GAP certified and to do GAP accounting in that. So we do GASB accounting, and really that's more of the review and the standard and the disclaimers that the state of Ohio, because when they come in and audit the report, they give the same disclaimer in that it's not a GAP audit, because we don't comply with GAP auditing in the state of Ohio.
right.
In that,
Yeah.
and because because we're not required.
Right, yeah, I'm read into that. So, maybe some light can be shed at some point then on the certification process. I wasn't able to track and see their certificates, the company with the state of Ohio, which I'm sure they're there. I don't know why they weren't there, but you're saying it's selected by the state of Ohio and then confirmed by the board. When does that, sounds like a source selection or bidding process, when does that take place?
Well,
Is that something that, so then the 3 trustee members, you're confirming, you're selecting them?
well, it's presented to us from our fiscal officer, Mr. Ron Campbell, and as long as the work they're doing takes care of the audit, that we need, and they do a great job. We could look for a different auditor every year, but it makes more sense to have continuity, say no. When they come in, they're more experienced and they know what they're looking for. They're not starting from scratch, so it makes the process a lot easier.
Continuity on that, Mr. Beamer, do you know how long they've been there?
Probably specifically, I would say it's been a few years or several years, probably.
Where's the company located?
Specifically, somewhere in the tri-state area, Cincinnati, Ohio. I think maybe even in Clermont County. It's an approved list as we've been explaining to you from the state of Ohio. So if they weren't doing a good job.
So the state of Ohio does a source selection on the auditors?
They wouldn't be on the list. It's just that simple.
Okay, what office can I check with on that? I never saw it, so I'm surprised.
I refer you back to the auditor's office in the state of Ohio.
Because it seems that, it seems like it's something that's a request that is to have an independent audit report in lieu of the procedures required at 117.11. So, Baston and Company, LLC, that's the.
Well, I'm not sure what you're getting at, but you're welcome to come up and do
Yeah.
a records request, and you can get all the information. You can call Basson Company.
Well, I'm just
yourself.
curious, it's been a question, because it's then looking at if it's, you're saying it's a selection off the list, and there's a contract, is there a cost for them? Is the state of Ohio cost? Is there cost avoidance? Like I said, I'm sure the answer is there.
There's a cost either way. In fact, my understanding is the way we're doing it was actually cheaper, plus they would do it every year as opposed to every 2 years, which something we had demanded that transparency to have a more frequent audit.
Okay. It's, it just, the way that the appearance of it is that it's, the firm doesn't have a website or seem to be doing this for any other townships or municipalities, so it's just surprising.
I don't understand. Were you questioning the auditor's advice or what?
Mr. Geisler?
Just for the vendor, just curious about the bidding process for the vendor, that's all.
Mr. Geis knows how many companies they do it for, Mr. McGraw.
Do you have any other comment on that?
So the biggest thing, I guess, that brings out the question, and that's for everyone's knowledge, is it's the state of Ohio making the statement that the auditor of state did not audit the accompanying financial statements, and accordingly were unable to express and do not express an opinion on them. And then the independent auditor's report kind of goes on to essentially say that they verified that the numbers and the math adds up, but that they don't look at any internal controls, et cetera. So it just kind of begs a question there. That's all.
No, I
So I was just curious
They do
about the
look at, they do look at some of the internal controls, because I know we've changed some things over the years to be more compliant.
Well, they make reference to not reviewing the internal controls, but that's all. I was just curious as far as the past performance of that individual company, how long they've been performing the audits. Is it something that we bid out? Is it something that we do for source selection? Is it something that we do for competitive processes? Just competition, iron sharpens iron, that's all.
That's all fine. If you have specific questions, I would just send an email to Mr. Campbell, any questions you might have, and he'd be more than happy to answer any questions regarding the audit.
Yeah, thank you for the time. I just feel it's in the best interest. I've heard that question quite a bit. And if it's cost avoidance, and I guess my question is, how much does it cost for provided additional transparency and
We're actually spending
accountability?
more because we're doing annual audits versus biannual. So actually, we're not avoiding any costs, we're actually incurring more costs to be more transparent.
Okay, okay.
So I think it's good practice. And to my knowledge, we haven't had any issues in the last several years that I've been on the board as far as things.
Yeah, just haven't seen that they have a past performance record of performing that work with any other municipalities, so.
But
Mr. Geis, they do a lot, don't they? I don't know off the top of my head, but they do several companies.
Best in a company, really, I want to say they do at least 25 municipal corporations annually. It may be as many as 50. They're one of the largest, or do one of the most comprehensive auditing jobs in the state of Ohio. They're actually located here, and the fact that I believe that the state issues a 5-year contract for them, and they're actually approved by the state of Ohio in that. And so the state provides a list to us, and they interview the actual auditing companies. There's a review process, and then the review is then confirmed by the Board of Trustees in that. But really, it's if the board, said that they only wanted the Baston company, that would not, they wouldn't get the Baston company to do that.
Right, that'd be a directed sole source.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's trying to get to what the process is there, and you help bring light to state that there's a bidding process the state of Ohio does, and that as that funnels through, that there's a selection process or a confirmation process the board can have.
And there's a maximum number of years that they can do an audit, just so that there's no consideration or there's no appearance that there's any kind of issue with them continuing to do that audit. And this is actually a process that is endorsed by the auditor's office, because they don't have the resources to employ to do the audits for us. And when you get to a township the size of Union Township, with the number of transactions that we have and the interrelated agencies with that, the actual independent auditors have a greater expertise in reviewing that audit than the state auditors do. And the state auditors, the actual review process is exactly the same from the independent auditors as it is from the state of Ohio. They send a team down, and then it's reviewed by the senior auditor from each district in that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess I pick up when you're saying that they're limited to their length and term on the contract because they don't want the audit company to be in place for too long. It makes sense. That operates with any good contract, as far as you limit a base contract to 5 years or so, because you just kind of fall into status quo and starting to miss things after that. So that's helpful. Anderson Township they're about comparable in size, right? 50,000 residents. And they have the state come in. So that's just.
And they're just doing it every 2 years then.
Just interesting.
No idea what Anderson Township
If
does.
that's the case, it's 2 years probably.
Don't care.
Oh, I was just, my understanding is that it's every year, but it's best practices, right? I mean, you gotta learn from others around you. Fail fast, fail hard, learn. That's when I said iron sharpens iron, that's all.
I feel compliant.
And that's why I suggest I would contact Mr. Campbell, because he's very friendly and open to meeting with anybody that has a question like that, and get your questions together. And he is the fiscal officer, so he would be able to answer those questions better.
They just address it to the Board of Trustees. I guess that's the misleading part by the auditor's state.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the time tonight.
Good night.
Thank you. Is there any other person here that wants to make a comment?